Hey everybody, welcome to Gettysburg here on November 19th. This is the anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. We'll get into whether this is Remembrance Day or if it's Dedication Day. People really like to talk about that. But you're with the American Battlefield Trust on our Facebook page. We hope you'll share this with your friends and help other people to, sort of understand the meaning of our country and our history through this one lens, at least today, through Gettysburg and the Gettysburg Address and the American Civil War. We've got special guests lined up throughout the day, but we got to start talking about the town. I can't believe I'm going to do this. I often rail about my friend Tim Smith talking about the civilian experience here at Gettysburg. I'm going to ask you all to know what term I use and hashtag that. So hashtag what? As I introduce my friend, licensed battlefield guide, probably the most knowledgeable Gettysburg town historian there is, Tim Smith, Adams County Historical Society.
Hey everybody. I am privileged to have this opportunity to talk about my favorite subject, town history. But we're now currently at the site of Samuel Geddes's Tavern. This area was settled in the 1730s and 40s, largely by Scotch, Irish, and German immigrants. In 1747, a road was placed right through this area where we're standing, the York-Nichols Gap Road. About 1761, a tavern was established by Samuel Geddes at this location. In 1769, the Baltimore-Shippensburg Turnpike was laid out, and an intersection was formed at that spot. Because this later became the county seat and the center of industry and commerce in this area, a network of roads were established around this intersection. And that network of roads would be the reason that the armies collided at Gettysburg. The roads brought them here. And of course, we have a monument to the site of Samuel Geddes's Tavern here that was placed in 1975 to honor the fact that troops gathered here to form a company to join George Washington's army in Boston during the American Revolution.
Hey, thanks, Tim. It's so good to see more than 200 of you on already, and I'm glad to see Mary Abro and Colleen Cheslak. I think we know you all. I'm going to introduce another guest in just a second, but you're with the American Battlefield Trust. We're covering Gettysburg 157 live. We are here all masked up. There are new regulations going into effect in Pennsylvania tonight, but better safe than sorry while we're in town especially. So that's what we're doing. Let me bring on Wayne Motz. Tim already talked about the founding of the town. What's this town like, Wayne, by the way, CEO of the National Civil War Museum in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania? What's this town like in 1863?
Well, Gary, thanks a lot. First of all, we probably ought to tell people where we're at, just in case they don't know where we may be. And we're right behind where the Gettysburg Hotel is located, everyone, near where the parking garage is, very close to the train station. So in 1860, the census here in Adams County in Gettysburg has 2,400 citizens here in the town. About 8% of those citizens are African Americans. And what did people do? Well, they were merchants, of course, in the town, and carriage making was a huge business here at the time just before the American Civil War and coming up into the American Civil War. If you're out in the areas around Gettysburg, then you're going to be into farming and you're going to be into agriculture, Gary.
Good, that's great. I always like to say, what is it, 6 churches, 1 million banks, 600 railroads or something like that. Not quite that many. I see some people guessing the hashtag that I like to razz Tim about for what he calls his civilian experience in town. And a few of them are fun here, and I like to see somebody from Las Vegas on as well. Townie Dorks Unite is one of my favorites as well. And yes, this is me behind all this stuff. Somebody asked if this was Gary. Let's bring Tim on as we talk a little bit more about the town and walk on over toward the railroad tracks. Tim?
Okay, so let's head on down to the train station from the parking garage area. And this is an area where, if you visit Gettysburg, of course, there's a parking garage here, so you park here. But this area actually, has a little bit of town history to it, and a lot of people don't notice that when they're back here. And besides this area being, it's called a racehorse alley where the parking garage is located. Also, if we walk out the back, we'll come to the railroad. So The first railroad in this area was conceived in the 1830s. It was known as the Tapeworm Railroad locally, not just because it ate up taxpayers' money, because it had a circuitous route through the mountain range west of Gettysburg. That attempt at a railroad failed, and in 1858, another railroad was placed near the same site along what was then North Street in the town. The train came to Gettysburg in December of 1858, and in 1859, a train station was placed at this spot. So it was at this train station that at the outbreak of the war, units from Gettysburg joined left to join the Army. And it was also at this train station after the Battle of Gettysburg that wounded were transported out of the town. And of course, 4 months after the battle, on November 19th, 1863, this was the train that a lot of the dignitaries used to get to the festivities surrounding the Gettysburg Address.
Man, I am so happy to see somebody tell someone else beside me to calm down. Someone said, calm down, Motz. Someone, welcome from Germany, Kurt. Somebody asked also, I think this is Nils or Niles, did the Confederates come into town and actually take African Americans back into slavery? They did in the campaign. It's my understanding they did not do that. Wayne, come on up here. That they did that actually here at Gettysburg. Is that right? And what else do you have to say?
Yeah, I think that we know and we have evidence that when the Confederates were advancing up in the valley, that they did take some African Americans, send them back into slavery. I don't think there's any evidence here in Gettysburg or in the area right immediate here to the battle for that, Gary. It's my opinion.
Yeah, good. Thanks. Sorry, I'm busy banning somebody who's trying to troll us right now. So I've banned them, but their stuff is still showing up. So don't worry, that'll take effect soon enough here. So there are a lot of, terrible scenes on the battlefield, and they're eventually going to decide, we have to do something with these dead, especially these northern dead who died on this northern battlefield. And eventually there's going to be a movement, and I'm going to bring Tim back up for this because a guy named David McConaughey, who ran the local or was prominent with the local town cemetery, Evergreen Cemetery, started to decide how to bring the dead together.
So I think the story of the cemetery at Gettysburg is fairly simple. After the battle, thousands of men were killed in the fighting, and they were buried all around the town and all over the fields around the town. And Governor Curtin came to Gettysburg a couple weeks after the battle. And he decided that they should be a place where maybe they put all the Pennsylvania soldiers who were killed in the battle in one location. And he's very good friends with a local lawyer here in Gettysburg, a guy named David Wills. As Gary mentioned, there was another guy named David McConaughey, and they had this concept to bury dead from the battle in one central location. At first, it was just the Pennsylvania soldiers. And after Governor Curtin went back to Harrisburg and actually telegraphed and spoke to other governors, they came with this idea for the Soldiers National Cemetery. So 18 different northern states would get together. The state of Pennsylvania purchased a piece of land near Gettysburg next to the existing cemetery, up on Cemetery Hill here. And they formed this Soldiers National Cemetery Committee. And eventually they came up with the idea to dedicate that cemetery. And that's what we talk about, the ceremony surrounding the Gettysburg Address. So,
yeah, Tim, why don't we also, and let me say, everybody's saying, Wayne Motz, calm down. I'm trying to yell to make sure you can hear me over this mask, everybody. So I know Gary had said that. Let's talk a little bit about the Confederate dead, because Tim had mentioned where the Union dead located. Confederate dead buried where they fell on the battlefield. And if they're lucky, you've got some sort of temporary marker on those graves. Those graves are going to be out on this battlefield until 1871, 1872. So you're looking about 9 years after the Battle of Gettysburg before those bodies are retrieved and sent south. Many of them went to Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia. Some went down to Raleigh, North Carolina, and to other southern cemeteries. If you're a general officer killed here in the Battle of Gettysburg, Union or Confederate, your body, unless you're Richard Garnett, who dies in Pickett's charge, unidentified, but the bodies of these general officers are also removed and taken to burial plots in home places. So that kind of gives you an update about the Confederate bodies that are out on the battlefield. 9 years, basically, they have to be out here on the field.
Yeah, I am just having to ban and block and delete more comments than I would like right now. This is what happens when you have a popular live. So thank you to those of you who are here legitimately. We really appreciate it. You're with the American Battlefield Trust. That's Chris White behind the camera there. We are in Gettysburg with guests Tim Smith and Wayne Motz. You've seen their names up on the screen a couple of times there as well. Glad to have Robert Carlson and so many other friends up here that I recognize. Tom Danninger. We might be going to one of your favorite places a little bit later. Now, you saw we were walking along the train tracks, and now we're coming up to the train station. This is forever connected with Lincoln's visit to Gettysburg. Okay, so Lincoln is here for 24.88 hours or so, and he is going to be here. Let's stop here for a second, Chris. And everything he did and everywhere he went, we can trace those things. There is a marker to a tree he passed by. There's a marker to the location near where he gave his speech and where he didn't give his speech. And of course, this train station is connected. Tim?
Well, I should have mentioned that the railroad here is the Gettysburg-Hanover Junction Railroad. It was established in 1858. And basically, there's a railroad between Baltimore and Harrisburg, and that's the Northern Central Railroad. So Abraham Lincoln left Washington, D.C. to attend the ceremonies here at the dedication on November 18th. And he rode up to Hanover Junction, which is 18 miles down this track. And then the 4 cars were shifted to another train, and they brought him over to Gettysburg. He arrived here about 6 p.m. on November 18th. And he went up to the square where he stayed at the home of David Wells. And the next day, he actually went up to the cemetery and with other dignitaries helped to dedicate that cemetery. And then after the Gettysburg Address ceremonies, he came back into the town, had a luncheon at David Wells' house, attended a political rally of the governors, put on by the governors of Ohio at the Presbyterian Church, and then afterwards came back to the train station about 7 p.m. So Gary likes to make fun of me, but I say 25 hours he was in the town, and he got back on the train and left. One of my favorite things when I read about the Gettysburg Address is the fact that after the ceremony, they put the president's cars on the track and they put a locomotive in front of it to call him out, and no one was allowed to leave the town by rail until the president's train pulled out. And apparently, for hours, thousands of people were standing at the train station waiting for the president to leave so they could get the other trains, and who knows how many locomotives were sitting on the side of the tracks, on the sidings, to get the other cars and the other trains out of this area. It must have been a scene of chaos.
This is great, Tim, and thanks. And it looks like our spammers have been officially banned, although there will be some coming up. And now we're coming to the front of this train station, which is pretty cool. I'm not aware Lincoln ever went in the train station. Maybe he did. But what we are going to do is replicate his walk from the train station to the town. Ray Rooks, you were on here already saying that you ate at the Lincoln Diner. Let's pan over there real quick. But it is documented that Abraham Lincoln also ate at the Lincoln Diner. Is that right, Tim?
No, Lincoln was going to eat at the Lincoln Diner, but he couldn't because there were too many booths in the diner.
Oh man, we're wearing masks so you can't see us smiling at these terrible jokes. You're with the American Battlefield Trust with guest Tim Smith, Wayne Motz. That's Chris White behind the camera, who's getting a shout out from a couple people. We've got Holland, we've got Germany, Indiana, Ohio, and all sorts of other places. Try to beat Germany, I say. So let's go for a moment of Zen real quick and walk toward the town square where he was while I bring up Wayne in a sec for the next comment.
So, Gary, let's imagine the president gets off this railroad train, he comes up and he walks up here. What's really interesting about this, we should mention, is that he had an African-American assistant with him, William Johnson. He may have been the only African-American man on the train ride up from Washington, D.C. over to Hanover Junction, coming with the president, and he took care of the president of the United States. And so the president making this walk would have had people lined up here into the streets. as he gets up to where the David Wills home is, which is where the president has been invited to stay.
That's great. Thank you, Wayne. And it looks like Keith, by the way, hope you and Jana are well. Please recover well from this terrible virus we have going on. But I'm glad that we beat you to the booth joke that he said that we did. I am also, I'm really happy to see all y'all right now watching. As we approach the town square of Gettysburg, it's going to get loud. We do have a windscreen on, so don't tell us that we do. And it's kind of cold in Gettysburg, and this is free. Let's remember that, okay? So here we are in the town square. Now, during the Battle of Gettysburg, you might have seen the Confederate flag or Confederate cannons in town here. But you would not have seen the town receive wholesale destruction, in part because of General Lee's order to not wage the war upon the civilians of Gettysburg while we're here. Now, let's see if we can get a little coverage. Actually, do you want to back up, Chris? Or no, he's siding along the Gettysburg Hotel now, currently a dorm for Gettysburg College students during COVID when everybody has to spread out here. So David Wills is a prominent attorney. He's got a kind of a large house. It's going to be backlit right now, but you might be able to see some of it there. And Abraham Lincoln is the only one who is going to get his own room when he comes here. He is dealing with a civil war. He is dealing with a sick child, and I mean a sick child, not long after he has lost one of his children as well. And I think Mrs. Wills, Tim, am I correct? Is she pregnant and hosting 33 people?
8 months pregnant.
8 months pregnant and hosting 33 people in her home. Could you imagine the discussions between her and her husband? Like, David, you're killing me here, okay? They obviously had some sort of help and whatnot, but this would have been a tough situation. Now, Lincoln spent the night inside the house. There are, in his room, some of the furniture that was there when he was there, including the bed, is actually in the room. And there's some very good exhibits in there. Tim and I are a little bit biased about those exhibits, I think. So what else do we want to say about while Wills is here, guys? I'm sorry, while Lincoln is here.
Just while Lincoln is here inside the Wills house, he wants to retire to his room, Gary, to try to write part of the Gettysburg Address or try to draft it. He wants to get some comments related to it, so he's going to move over next door. And the building is not there anymore, but where the Masonic Lodge is, right next to where the Wills home is where Robert Goodloe Harper, and he's one of the newspaper editors here, and William Seward, that's where William Seward's going to be staying. So he's going to go over there and confer with Seward. We don't know all the exchanges here, but we do know that the president went over to visit with the Secretary of State there.
Good. To David, we are saying David Wills, not Wells. It's a little bit hard to see. I see Andrew Dalton is on. He's the executive director of the Adams County Historical Society. We hope to go live or not live from there before long. Look for us over there to see some of their great collections. And also you can look forward to being able to see some of the collections of the National Civil War Museum that Wayne has brought out for us today. So look for us at places connected with the events that we're discussing today. And I had something else to say and I lost it. Tim, you want to wrap this up about Wills?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I was going to point out that David Wills himself really doesn't leave us much in the way of a personal account of Abraham Lincoln, but we do have one letter that was written to him, or written by him, about the event. And that was that, of course, we know that Lincoln wrote the main part of the Gettysburg Address in the White House, or he wrote the entire first draft at the White House, we figure, but he definitely doctored or finished the Gettysburg Address while he was here in the House. And David Wills mentions that Lincoln calls him to the room and asks him for paper, and he brings Lincoln some paper, and that he says the next day on the platform, Lincoln has that paper with him. At least the second part of the address is on paper that David Wills gave him at the time. And also, my favorite story about David Wills, he had learned, theoretically by Governor Curtin that Lincoln might attend the ceremony. So on November 2nd, just a couple weeks before the ceremony, he sent Abraham Lincoln a personal invitation to attend the ceremonies. And he wanted Abraham Lincoln to know that he would not be the main speaker. Edward Everett was going to make the oration that day. So he added in his letter that the president was to make a few appropriate remarks. And I like to think if David Wills had not done that, maybe Lincoln would have talked for 20 minutes. So it was a local Gettysburg citizen that created the framework by which Abraham Lincoln wrote the Gettysburg Address, the greatest speech in American history, 210 words, 10 sentences. Would he have done that if David Wills had told him he could speak as long as he liked?
That's great, Tim. I love that point. For those of you who are just coming on, we're about to wrap it up, but you're with the American Battlefield Trust. We are going to be live as much as we can today from Gettysburg, following in the footsteps of the Battle of Gettysburg and, of course, of Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address. Just a couple of things. We will be in the Evergreen Cemetery at some point today, and Wayne Motz is going to bring something that was there that day. And we're bringing it back, I think, for the first time since it was there in 1863. So we'll be out there later today. Stick with us. We'll be in a lot of cool places, I promise you. Excuse the traffic. I got two things I want to straighten out with Tim Smith. First of all, somebody asked, it's called the town square, but it's really a circle. I know Tim will have something to say about that. Two, is this Remembrance Day today or Dedication Day? Tim?
Oh, well, you know, oftentimes we refer to this as Remembrance Day, but it's the anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, November 19th. And there's a separate ceremony in Gettysburg called Remembrance Day, but it is a celebration of the Sons of the Union veteran, and it usually is a parade that is held that ends at the monument to Albert Wilson, the last surviving veteran of the Civil War. And that is always held on the Saturday closest to Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and we generally refer to that as Remembrance Day. Sometimes Remembrance Day and the Dedication Day, the anniversary, are the same day. So oftentimes we refer to them both by the same name. But that's a very convoluted explanation for something that I guess wasn't that complicated.
Tim, how about the explanation for what it was during the time of the battle? So remember what they actually called this during the time of the battle. So is it a square? Is it a circle? That's what Gary was talking about. It's called the diamond at the time of the battle. You're a local citizen, that's what you call it on November 19, 1863.
So, in summary, as Tim often says, it's a diamond, but it's shaped like a traffic circle, and it's really a square. I stole that from Tim. Want to correct one thing that Ray said. I know you, Ray. Good to see you, Maryland man. Not Maryland man's son, but Maryland man. Everett's speech was 2 hours long, but people loved it. He was the greatest speaker in the land. People were rousing and clapping and standing up and cheering. For 2 hours, he strung them along on a masterful speech, but then Lincoln went and stole the show a little bit later. You're with the American Battlefield Trust. We'll be at this all day. Please share this not only with your friends who love history, but share it with some friends who might not be obsessed with history. Maybe they can learn a little bit more about it. You'll have more to talk about with your friends and family, and they might also learn to become maybe slightly better citizens the more we know our history. So thank you for watching. Please stay safe, and thank you for supporting battlefield preservation and education.